This meeting of the Monroe Township Board of Education is now called to order. I'd like to ask our student board member, Mr. Jamal, to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Gorski, you have a roll call.
Certainly. Mrs. Arminio. Mr. Braverman. Here. Mrs. DeMayo.
Here.
Mr. Kaufman.
Here.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Here.
Mr. Nostine.
Here.
Mrs. Carino.
Here.
Mr. Ryback.
Here.
Mr. Russo.
Here.
And Mr. Rutsky. Here. Mr. Board President, you have a quorum present this evening. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted September 9th, 2016 at all schools, the Home News Tribune, Cranberry Press, and filed with the clerk of the municipality.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. Before we have our student board members report, I'd just like to welcome back both of you, Mr. Jamal, and welcome Ms. Scalise, Stephanie Scalise, who's a junior in the school, and we certainly welcome you to this Board of Education. Okay, Mr. Jamal, do you have a report?
Before we begin our board report, we're going to have our new student board member introduce themselves for a little bit.
Hi again, I'm Stephanie Scalise, and I'm a junior at Monroe Township High School. I'm a part of 3 clubs, the Student Council, the Poet Society, and Italian Honor Society, and I'm glad to be here, so nice to meet you all.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you, too.
Okay, so for our report, the first thing I have is this was the first summer that we were allowed to keep our iPads over the summer. So the way that helped the school year so far is in the beginning of the year, we didn't have this 2 or 3 week period where students were waiting to get their iPads, and some teachers were like, they were really delayed in starting to teach, or they couldn't teach the way they usually do. So having the iPads definitely helped with that, and we got into learning new stuff much faster.
The sports updates for September 8th, the girls soccer loses in overtime to Piscataway, and volleyball beat Edison. For September 8th also, boys soccer scores 2 times in the last 3 minutes to win 2-1. And for yesterday, boys soccer beats Piscataway 3-0.
That concludes our report.
Thank you both very much. Now, does anybody have a question or for our student board members? Okay, thank you both. At this time, I'd like to have Mr. Gorski do the budget philosophy.
Just plenty.
Yes. Good evening. Welcome to the 2017-2018 Board Development for a Budget Philosophy. This is the kickoff to the budget process, the budget season, and it begins with a board meeting of the minds to discuss their priorities and what they feel is important to them next year in terms of the budget and what the budget should provide for. Should they focus on new curriculum needs? Should they focus on new student enrollment needs? Should they focus on facility needs? Should they focus on reducing the tax rate, or all of the above? The administration is prepared tonight to provide evidence to help and facilitate the board in developing their philosophy, and then administration will take it from there, immediately developing a budget, because with the timetable specifically put together by the state, we need to begin working with the principals, the supervisors, directors, getting out enrollment information, class information, to determine what their needs are, and there's a lot of information that gets compiled for the budget development. I'd like to introduce the Board of Education. Board President, Mr. Stephen Ryback, Mr. Tom Nostein, Board Vice President and Finance Committee Chair, Mrs. Michelle Arminio, Policy Committee Chair, Mr. Marvin Braverman, Building Grounds Transportation Committee Chair, Jill DeMeo, Personnel Committee Chair, Lou Kaufman, Curriculum Committee Chair, Kathy Koloponowicz, Frank Russo, Dawn Carino, and our Jamesburg representative, Paul Rutsky. We wanted to add the committee chairs to this introduction because it's not just the Finance Committee that determines what should be in the budget. Certainly there's a strong argument that policy, building grounds, transportation, personnel, and curriculum has a direct effect and is interwoven throughout the budget, and they should be recognized in their process as well.
Okay, we inserted a couple pictures into our presentation to talk about really what's driving our budget philosophy this year, probably more than in past years. Of course, our budget is for our core mission, which is to continually improve the delivery of education to all of our students and to help our students enter into successfully into a global society. But as most of you know, if not all of you know, our student enrollment has been growing by leaps and bounds. And I wanted to bring a couple pictures in just to remind everyone that the construction has already started in 2 of the areas. And there are developments that are still being finished. Behind Oak Tree School, the development behind Oak Tree School, they're still building the townhouses. And just yesterday morning or this morning, I drove by and I saw a backhoe in a place that I had not seen before. So they're still building some of the single homes there, but it's continually growing. So this picture, and Mr. Gorski, if you could click to the next, and I think we might have one more. Right. So for those people who are not driving by the 2 main areas that are being developed right now, it's just a little reminder of what's facing us. In a little bit, I'll talk about the number of students that we've had enrolled just in over the summer and the increase, and it's steadily growing, and we know that. We expected that. We've had a demographic report. But that growing student enrollment is putting a draw drawing on our resources, our available resources. So we will continually have to add staff. We're going to have to add facilities, furniture, desk, all those type of things. And it would be irresponsible of us to wait until we're ready to build a new school, to open a new school, to start planning for that. It's going to be enough of a financial burden as it is on the community, and we're cognizant of that. We're sympathetic. We're just dealing with the situation we have, and we welcome our new students, and we want them to feel welcome. But we have to plan for that. And part of this budget philosophy is really planning for the amount of students are coming in and preparing. And any time that you build a budget over several years, or you plan over several years, you try to avoid spikes so that you have one year where it's just a spike in cost. So part of this philosophy is, how can we plan for the future, which is pretty much here, right? I mean, they're building, and the homes are going to be built and open and sold before we'll have an opportunity to open a school.
So what is a budget philosophy? Once again, the budget philosophy of establishing the annual school budget should entail the creation of a framework for a budget that supports a democratic plan of appropriate funding for the implementation of educational programs so that students may develop and learn from quality experiences based on educationally sound and fiscally prudent planning. A solid financial base is paramount to assuring that the school district will be able to meet the responsibility of preparing our students for an increasingly competitive environment. And the budget philosophy stage should be macro-focused rather than micro-focused, as much more refinement will be required and implemented in the future through the rigorous budget process. This is a conceptual idea tonight. I don't want anybody to focus on any of the individual numbers or concept. This is basically just presented tonight to be a forecast of what spending needs we see coming next year and what new resources are available to the district. As Dr. Kozak said, budget appropriations or spending is driven by student enrollment. And over the past 9 years, the district has picked up 1,757 new students. That is extraordinary. And it is very difficult from an administrative standpoint to keep up with facility needs as well as student instructional needs. This is a comparison from our fall report of last year, which is we do a report called the Application for State School Aid, and we count every student in the district, what grade level, what school, special education, what tiering they're in. And it used to be that this report drove how much state aid you get. It used to be dependent upon the students and with a direct correlation. It is no longer. But the report from October 15th, 2016 shows a total of 6,728 students throughout the district. Our projections, which were recently prepared by our demographer, Ross Haber and Associates, project 7,155 students by the 17-18 school year. As you can see, that's an increase of 427 new students in 1 year's time. That the pace of enrollment growth is accelerating, and 427 new students is a small school in some of our surrounding school districts. And that's just one budget increase for Monroe. Now I'd like to go through and highlight some of the budget appropriation considerations on a macro scale for next year. What we did here is Dr. Alvick and I reached out to all of the principals, assistant principals, supervisors, directors, including the director of facilities and the director of transportation, and said, what do you forecast your needs to be for next year? We want to give the board a presentation of what may be coming for next year. Doesn't mean all of this is going to get into the budget, and I emphasize that again, but this is a first prediction of what's needed. 4 54-passenger buses with cameras, totaling $396,000. 2 25-passenger vans with cameras, $126,000. 3 additional contracted drivers with benefits, $144,489. Total mandated and recommended transportation needs for next year, $666,489. From this schedule, 3 54-passenger buses are required to be taken out of service and replaced because of the state's requirement for removing buses depending upon years. Every 15 years, you have to remove a bus from service, and that also coincides with board policy. We're asking for more, however, in the terms of 1 additional 54-passenger bus above that and 2 25-passenger vans above that requirement because of enrollment growth and the need to reduce contracted routes and reduce our dependency upon contracted busing. As Dr. Kozak, Dr. Alvick, and I know too intimately, 9 out of 10 of our busing problems this year were directly related to contracted buses. And we did a Herculean effort above last year trying to rectify some of the problems that we had, like requiring dry runs by the contracted drivers so they get familiar with the route, they preview the route. We had a contractor on our jobs for the second year now, so they should be familiar with our streets. But the driver shortage resulted in the low bidder on our transportation routes subcontracting it from Marlton to Neptune. So Neptune, of Division of First Student, provided our transportation services for this year. And once again, it was like their first time on the job, getting familiar with our roads. And the rotation of drivers that we thought would have been effective, the dry run of drivers, which we thought would have been effective in previewing the route to the drivers, turned out not to be so because they rotated them on a daily basis. So we're having a lot of problems with contracted buses, and it is our recommendation to chip away at this as best we can by bringing them in-house. One of the constraints we have is where to park them because our parking lot is out of space. We have staff parking on grass, and we are in the process of a land transfer from the township directly across the street from the administrative building on Buccaloo Avenue behind the firehouse, and we are exploring with our engineer what it would cost to develop that for a busing parking lot so we can expand our fleet further. Additional budget appropriation considerations are Barclay Brook School partial roof replacement. Every year, the district, the Board of Education, has included in the budget not only the needs of new students, which is extraordinary, but also a periodic capital project. I have performed 4 roof replacement projects, closed Applegard School, remediated asbestos, put a whole facelift on that school and when it was reopened, converted the high school to the middle school when we did that whole transition. All of that was done within the budget cap in the capital outlay fund. And we want to continue with that progress by replacing the Barclay Brook roof next year, $632,000. We also plan on constructing a bus parking lot, as I just said, on the new site on Route 522. The engineer has given us a preliminary cost estimate, very crude, of $1.5 million for the development of that property, including grading, excavation, removal of trees, and paving and striping and fencing and cameras, security cameras. Also included in bullet number 2 is to repave the Board of Education parking lot at 423 Buccaloo Avenue, which has been patched and patched and repatched every year, and it looks like a quilt now more than it does a parking lot. The cost of both of those, $2 million. Additionally, we have asphalt paving needs throughout the district at Barclay Brook School, the Monroe Township Middle School, and believe it or not, at Oak Tree School, because at Oak Tree there's a need to seal the parking lot and restripe it to prevent erosion. $264,400. Another project is to replace pre-K and kindergarten playground surfacing and equipment at Mill Lake School because of safety concerns, $137,000. Restore paint and structured steel exterior columns at the middle school, $88,000. Replace carpet at the Monroe Township Middle School Performing Arts Center, instrument and music classroom spaces, $44,800. And to replace a dump truck and another truck replacement, both of which are used for snow plowing, $133,800. Total capital improvement considerations for next year, $3.3 million. It's important to compare that to what was in the capital outlay budget last year to see what's the increase. And $2.2 million was in the capital outlay budget last year, and that leaves a new demand on the budget for $1.1 million. Again, not all of these are going to be incorporated and make it into the budget, but this is the first blush forecast of need. Additional appropriation considerations have to do with salary and benefits. 85% of the budget is fixed, the majority of which is coming from salaries and benefits. We are a labor-intensive organization. The approximate wage base of $65 million times Last year's percentage increase of 2.75 is just a projection of what we would have to budget for salary increases for next year, $1.7 million. It is important to note that the Monroe Township Administrators Association and the Monroe Township Education Association contracts end June 30 of 17. Therefore, we do not have a percentage increase in a guide to accurately project this for next year. But just as a bookmark, we're using 2.75. Benefits are over a $20 million budget appropriation line item. The 2016-2017 premiums were $22,200,000. The projected increase for next year, conservatively, is 8%, taking it to $23,991,000. That is not all a district expense, because there has been significant contributions from staff required by Chapter 78, and before that, the 1.5% of salary roll over the last few years. Our health insurance broker and I project that next year we will collect approximately $3.1 million from health insurance contributions staff-wide toward health benefits, leaving $20,875,000 as net premiums, or an estimated increase in benefits for next year of $1.7 million. Health insurance has been one of the greatest areas of gain and cost reductions for the district. Through sidebar negotiations with the MTEA, we have offered mid-contract year some cheaper alternative health plans like the Direct Access Plan and the EPO plan. Through the fruit of negotiations with the board and the MTEA, the traditional health plan, which was one of our most expensive, greatest examples of a Cadillac plan, is closed and due to be completely sunsetted at the end of their contract, June 30, 17. And co-pays have been pushed steadily higher every year, in addition to these bargaining groups negotiating to agree to Chapter 78 contributions, which are no longer required by law. Curriculum budget appropriation needs, I'd like to turn over to Dr. Alvik.
Okay, so as Mr. Gorski said, these are just considerations. These are not items that are in our budget. We haven't started that process yet, but these are some things that have actually been on our consideration list, many of them for several years now, but they've never made it through the budget process because there are other needs that were more pressing in order for us to meet our budget requirement, which is one of the things that will be set tonight by the Board of Education. So some of the needs that we see forthcoming next year, technology updates and replacements. Every year we try to keep on top of this and replace some of our older computers, laptops, and teacher computers that are in our schools. So we try to keep this on a rotating basis so that there's not a huge cost at any one point. We are in the process at the elementary level and the middle school level of replacing the laptops that we're currently using with Chromebooks, which are a much cheaper version. And then we're spending the time really giving professional development to our teachers of how best to use these in our classroom with our students. So we want to continue to do the rollover replacement for some of our older models of our technology. At the high school, we have the one-to-one initiative with our iPads for our students. And again, due to increased enrollment, there will be a need for about 170 iPads next year with the increase in student enrollment to make sure that each of our students has the device that they need. When we think about facilities with curriculum, some of the things that are coming up are industrial arts equipment. We have industrial arts equipment at both the middle school and the high school, and each year it's imperative that we have it inspected and checked to make sure that it is safe and reliable for our students to use. So that's a cost that we need to look at each year to make sure that those machines are available and up to where they need to be for our students. Due to the increased number at our middle school, we are out of student lockers. So as we continue to get more students at the middle school, we need to increase the number of lockers available for our students. And we also need to look, I know we already mentioned the classrooms around the Performing Arts Center at the middle school, but we also need to think about the Marasco PAC updates and maintenance at the middle school. We need to look at possibly updating our lighting board, the curtain, and the stage. These are all things that need some updates. Again, this was something that has been on for consideration the last couple of years, and we're moving them forward. Some other considerations that we've heard about quite a few times, I think, at some of our board meetings, some requests from parents. Some of our parents have been very vocal about some of the teams that we do not have in our district. At our middle school, we currently had about over 400 students go out for fall sports. We only have 150 spots for those students. So we would like to increase some of the sports programs at our middle school in order to have more offerings for our students. At the high school, we do not have a boys volleyball or a swim team. And again, this is something that has come up several times over the past couple of years, that there is an interest for this. We are the only Division IV school that does not have a boys volleyball program. And I know that we've had parents come up to the board and request the swim teams. So these are things that are there's an interest in the community for us to look at them. Some of our uniforms are in need of replacement. Our marching band uniforms are 15 years old. So this is something that we should be looking at. They really are, need some updating. Our football uniforms, they have usually been replaced about every 3 years. We are on the 5th year of that cycle. So again, these are things that we know have needed to be replaced, but we keep moving them forward just because they're not fitting in with our priorities. Expanding some of the middle school creating a career center at the middle school and expanding some of the clubs. Again, because of the increase in student enrollment, making sure that we have enough opportunity for our students. And also looking at our senior option program. This is the program where our students leave early their senior year, as long as they've met all of the requirements of graduation and have enough credits. They leave early, they can go and take college courses, they can go and work in different places around our community. Any of those things. So really looking at those options for our students. Textbooks, one of the resources that we use in our classrooms. In the middle school, grades 6 through 12, actually this year, we implemented the new next generation science standards. So our middle school science textbooks are in need of replacement in order to upgrade those to the new science standards. So that really is the big cost here, is looking at a new science program. We are moving forward with our reading workshop model in all of our elementary schools, moving it into 4th and 5th grade. Well, if we want our students to have a choice of reading, we need to make sure we're offering them those books in the classroom. So expanding our reading libraries in our classrooms at 4th and 5th grade. Looking at exploratory business textbook. So it's really looking at updating it with the curriculum changes that have been made to the exploratory business course and moving it more towards an intro to business course. And math iBooks, again, because of student enrollment, we need to be able to purchase. We do not need a new math textbook series in any of our high school classes, but we do need more student licenses for the students that are incoming to our school. The personnel list is quite extensive, and that is really, it's all due to student enrollment. So if we look at this list, there are 21 certificated staff positions. These include middle school teachers, high school teachers, a reading specialist, elementary teachers, a child study team, and a nurse. Those are the certificated staff positions that are there. The way that the amounts have been calculated is we took the average for a teacher to come in. We multiplied it by the percentage of what the teachers earn this year, the 2.75%, as Mr. Gorski had mentioned. And then we also included the benefits amount for the teacher. So that most of those numbers include benefits. We also would like to add 2 more technology staff members. With all of the technology going on in our district, we really need the technology support within our schools. Also adding 2 security guards, again, because of student enrollment, because of growth, because our buildings are used all of the time. It's imperative that we have the security at our buildings. A secretary is needed at the middle school. in the guidance and child study team office, so it would be a shared secretary for guidance and child study team. Looking at possibly some administration help. Again, with our numbers in our schools, we need more administrative help for the coverage of our buildings. So looking at possibly 2 assistant principals, one at the middle school, one at the high school. A Marasco PAC coordinator. So this would just be a stipended position. It could be for someone who's currently working in our district, but they would help to organize anything that's happening at the PAC, which is pretty much a full-time job. With all of the activities going on in our buildings. And also, along with the certificated staff, looking at paraprofessionals. For FTEs, FTE is full-time equivalent. So we try not to hire full-time paraprofessionals. We usually hire them at 3.75 hours so that it does not include benefits. And then we have more flexibility with the hours that they're working during the day to make sure that we're covering the needs within our schools.
So that's total curriculum needs of just under $3 million for next year. And as Dr. Alvick said, it's all attributable to growth. So in summary format, the total appropriation considerations for next year: transportation, $666,489. Construction and facilities, net from last year, an additional $1.1 million. Salary increases are projected to need about $1.8 million. Benefits, just about the same, $1.8 million. Curriculum, $3 million, for a total of $8.3 million of new appropriation needs for next year. To offset the appropriations, you have to have an equal amount of revenues. The budget has to match. Appropriations has to equal revenues. We cannot submit to the state an unbalanced budget or a budget deficit. So some budget resource considerations for next year. Number one, the bond referendum is closed. You may recall that with this high school, we had $8 million of surplus due to the effective management and construction of the school that has all been returned back to the taxpayers as tax relief. There is no more money available to be infused. General fund state aid. $2.8 million was awarded in 16-17, and despite the incredible efforts of Board President Mr. Ryback, Dr. Kozak, Dr. Alvick, and I, meeting with, and I would just like to talk about this for a minute because this is important on the state aid issue. We've met with the following people on a pursuit for additional state aid, for fair funding for Monroe, because I will say to you, we are underfunded and we receive an inequitable amount of funding. We met with the governor's chief of staff. We met with Senator Linda Greenstein about a half a dozen times. We've met with Senator Sweeney, who is the Senate president, 2 times at least. We have been accompanied by Mayor Tamboro and before that Mayor Pucci. The district has written our own in-house legislation to qualify for additional state aid. We went to Senate Education budget hearings on that legislation where it found favor in Trenton but died in the closing of the Senate, has been reintroduced with a new number that's posted on our website and is still alive but unlikely to be created into law. And Mr. Ryback is going to present more on this topic during his superintendent's report, I understand, but board president report, but we have done everything you could expect from an administration and a board and more to solicit fair and equitable state aid funding, because there is a gross injustice where the taxpayers of this community have to pay for 88 or 89% of the resources required for public education, and the state commits less than 2%. Proprietary fund to explore new revenue sources which could be infused into the general fund budget to reduce taxes. We have new proprietary funds, Falcon Care and Early Childhood Enrichment, both of which are very profitable and are paying off the previous MECA loan and are creating retained earnings. And thanks to the very successful negotiations with the Jamesburg School District, we have an agreement in place for tuition, and Jamesburg always has and is paying their fair share of tuition to Monroe. The dispute occurred, as you know from the past, because of the imposition of a state budget cap, which prohibited Jamesburg from raising the amount of funds that they had agreed to pay Monroe in their budget. Mechanically, they just could not do so. So next year, we have a schedule of cap for use in the 17-18 budget. Excess surplus, I'm sorry, this is the cap schedule. This shows the prior year general fund tax levy, which is $95,400,000. The state's calculation of how much you're able to grow your budget adjusts that prior year general fund levy with an automatic enrollment adjustment of $850,000. That's a minuscule adjustment to the cap for the volume and amount of students that are being introduced to the district. That gives you an adjusted pre-year budget general fund tax levy of $96,281,000. Then you inflate that figure by 2%. That brings it to $98,207,000. There's an adjustment for health care costs where the state gives you a $750,000 adjustment to the cap. And we project that next year the general fund tax levy cap will be $98,957,000. The district has available banked cap from last year because the district did not budget to the full amount of cap available by law. Because of the handsome amount of surplus we had last year, the budget was created for $16-17, $600,000 under cap, and also put $975,000 into capital reserve. So the general fund tax levy cap for next year can grow $3.5 million without the use of bank cap and $4.1 million with the use of bank cap. We are going to post all of these slides on the district website, so please don't feel it's necessary to copy all the numbers. And excess surplus is defined as the difference between actual revenues recognized in the year and budgeted revenues, plus actual expenditures and budgeted appropriations. It is required that excess surplus from June 30, 16 be used as a revenue source in the 17-18 budget. The 14-15 excess surplus calculation was $5,010,000. Our estimate for 15-16 is $6.1 million. In layman's terms, that means we grew our surplus or our leftover budget appropriations from the preceding year by $1.1 million due to the effective management of the budget by controlling costs, by joining purchasing consortiums, by concessions from the labor organizations, and by very constrained spending habits. So to summarize, we showed before that we had $8.3 million of new appropriation or spending needs for next year. The new revenue sources to offset that are tax levy cap without the use of bank cap, $3.5 million. The excess surplus of $1,100,000 above the previous year is a new revenue source. So what we have is appropriations in excess of revenues projected for next year of $3.6 million. Well, what does that mean? That means that $3.6 million is going to have to be cut from some of the projected expenses that you've been previewed for next year, or removed from existing programs and services within the district now, or when we put together the budget, we're going to have to try to maximize other revenue sources in order to close that. But right now, our anticipated needs are greater than the amount that the state allows you to grow your budget and how much we contributed as an administration by saving and underspending last year. Ratables are very important in the calculation of taxes. The rateable base in town is the aggregate valuation of property values. That's how the tax levy is distributed based upon how much your property is worth compared to yours. You would have a greater share of the tax levy than you would. That's the equitable means of sharing the tax levy. The tax rate goes down, and this is one of the benefits of growth in the district, with the new residents moving in. The more residents and property values that come online in the equalized valuation rateable calculation, the more people are sharing in the tax levy. It's like renting a movie and then everybody shares $2, but you have more people join you to watch it, everybody's going to then contribute less. It's the same thing with ratables. We're anticipating a 2% growth in ratables for the 17-18 school year, and that will be a significant tailwind to the tax rate by reducing it.
So this is one of my favorite slides because it speaks to what are you getting for your money. So our graduation rate for our class that just left us in June of this year was 97.3%. So 97.3% of our students graduated in June. Now, that does not include the number of students that finished up and did their credit replacement that they needed to do over the summer. So other students over the summer have since graduated. This is just the number from June. And of our June 2016 graduating class, 86% of those students attended college. 2% are attending career technical schools, 1.2% entered the military, 7.1% entered the workforce, and 3.7% were undecided or non-grads. 1% of those were undecided. The 2.7 were the ones that were the non-grads. And again, that number has increased over the summer. We spend a lot of time and really look at our AP course offerings in our high school, and we do offer quite a few AP courses for our students. AP is advanced placement. So these are courses where our students can actually earn college credit while they're still in high school by taking these AP courses. We had 314 students who have participated in our AP testing this spring. And of those students, 81% of them scored a 3 or higher. You must score a 3 or higher in order to earn the college credits while they're taking the test. And again, we just received our scores on the SAT and ACT. And again, this year, the Monroe Township students scored higher than the state average on those SAT and ACT scores.
So what does this all result in? Very high district performance and numerous best practices as pointed out by the county office during our budget efficiency reviews every year, plus comparatively low taxation equals incredible value for this community. You're getting a lot for your money, you're getting an incredible product, our students are performing very highly, and we intend on delivering that again with the 17-18 budget. So I would like to read a resolution at this time, and then we can engage in deliberation. It is recommended that the Board of Education establish and adopt a budget philosophy for the 17-18 school year to responsibly meet the demands of continuing significant student growth and facility needs, as well as program and service requirements by budgeting to cap without the ability to utilize bank cap and without consideration of budgeting by going out to a vote to the voters, while prioritizing the following items subject to restrictions presented by administration. The first priority is construction projects as presented. The second, the curriculum recommendations as presented. The third, the salary and benefit increases as per contract negotiations and as presented. And fourth, transportation recommendations as presented. This action by the board will enable the board to fulfill its educational responsibility to the district students in a thorough and efficient, fiscally prudent manner while ensuring the maintenance of district resources and facilities.
Second. Any
That concludes our presentation, and we turn it over to Mr. Ryback.
Any discussion, questions from the board on the resolution? Mr. Norstein?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I'd like to commend Dr. Kozak and Mr. Gorski and his financial team for the hard work that went into this. I know this is always a very busy time. We have the CAFR audit in the process, and to go through this is probably a very huge undertaking. Some members of the board probably may realize that we're doing this at a different time this year. Last time we did this in August when we did our district and board goals, and it was determined that it kind of made a little more sense to do it now, since Mr. Gorski and his team have a firmer grasp, especially with that excess budget calculation in place that we typically would not have in the summer when we used to do this meeting. So once again, I thank them for their hard work in making this come together. One of the questions I have for Mr. Gorski is that if we were to go below cap, what would the repercussions of that, let's say if we tried to go below cap like we did last year, could you elaborate on some of the things that could occur if we were to do that?
Certainly, Mr. Board President. Thank you. Last year, because of the effective management of the budget and the constraints on spending, mainly through saving millions in purchasing consortiums, the fruit of labor negotiations, and the incredible negotiations that we engage in with Horizon Healthcare by getting competitive quotes from other carriers, threatening to leave, and getting the rate down to every year becoming the envy of the other school districts in the county and the state. We grew excess surplus, which is the leftover residual amount of each year's budget, to a very handsome amount. That enabled us to pay a dividend to the taxpayers last year by going under cap by $600,000 while still meeting all the educational needs of the ever-increasing student body. This year, the rate of growth in this district has increased to a level that we've never seen before. We showed you a projection of 427 new students next year, many of which are special education needs. We have many aging facilities in the district that the state has really no mechanism or funding currently available in order to fix and maintain. Just today, I met with our director of facilities who came to see me on an urgent matter because our former supervisor's office, where we met in closed session, and the other office at the corner, which was used for a different purpose, were converted to student classrooms because of incredible growth demands on the district that could not be anticipated. His concern was that we had to buy electric work and computers and do some walls, all of which were not in the budget. The demands of student growth on the district have been extraordinary, and it's been very difficult to maintain within the cap. And last year was a really extraordinary year where we were able to maintain that, fix our facilities, and go under cap. But unfortunately, with negotiations upon us with two of our largest groups, Monroe Township Administrators Association and the Monroe Township Education Association, and not having a fixed number of increase in order to budget for, that contingency requires us to be a little more conservative. The amount of special education needs in this district have grown exponentially and are very costly. Our autistic program, for example, requires that one teacher serve no more than 8 students. And we have about 120 resource class and in-class support staff teachers in the district. About 28% of the budget goes for 18% of the students in the special education categories. So, Mr. Nostine, to answer your question directly, because of the contingency with negotiations, but mainly because of the incredible growth that we are managing in this district, it would be, in my opinion, irresponsible to budget under cap. As much as we would love to pay another dividend back to the taxpayers, we believe we have done so with the excess surplus calculation and the money that's coming over as a resource with the budget. But to project a budget on revenues that could be less than what is needed to meet the demands of the district next year could be very hazardous. I would hate for every example to build or recommend a budget to this board that could not provide the resources to meet a long negotiated contract with either of those bargaining groups or restrict them in any way.
Thank you very much for that very, very elaborate answer. My question also now, we are not looking to go above cap, correct? We still have the capability. We could be going $600,000 above cap, so almost 2.5%, if that was the case. Is that an accurate assessment?
That is exactly correct. You can grow the budget beyond what we're recommending by utilizing the $600,000 that we did not go to cap last year, which is called bank cap. And we have another option that would not be really unheard of, and that would be going to the voters and going above the cap because of these extraordinary needs which we can demonstrate in this budget. But we are not recommending either of those measures at this time, but we are recommending just going to the regular tax cap and using the excess surplus calculation as required by statute.
But even with all this, going to cap and the excess surplus, there's still a lot of work to be done in slicing and dicing this budget. So I am actually recommending that this resolution, and I urge my fellow board members to go ahead with this. As chairman of the Finance Committee, I've had numerous discussions with Mr. Gorski on certain items and certain avenues, but at the end of the day, it's this board's responsibility to make sure that we are funding the educational system in Monroe. As Mr. Gorski has told me numerous times, he's been adding a lot of hamburger helper to the meat. And at this point, we're almost at the point where we're just going to be eating only hamburger helper. So I think it's incumbent upon this board to, unfortunately, we have to go to cap, but I think that to not go to cap would be a dereliction of our duty. So I urge this board to consider the budget philosophy as presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Any other board member with a question or comment? Ms. Arminio.
Can you just explain a little bit more for me, in the resolution where it's the third line, where it says, without the ability to utilize bank cap and without consideration of budgeting above the cap. I got the budgeting above the cap. We're not going to do that, even though technically we have the ability to do so. So if you can just sort of explain the first part of that, the ability to utilize the banked cap.
Yes. The Board of Education last year resolved a budget that was $600,000 under this maximum spending authority, also known as the cap. That was a dividend back to the taxpayers due to the extraordinary spending constraints that were put through during the year, and did have an effect on the tax rate because $600,000 is material. That $600,000 is not lost by the district's lack of use in that budget year. It actually can carry over for use in the next 3 years before it expires. So that unused spending authority or bank cap from last year in the dollar amount of $600,000 remains an unused tax cap adjustment that we do not recommend administratively the need to use at this time. However, with the projections of student enrollments going forward, there was a lengthy discussion about portable classroom trailer units this year. And we anticipate that even under the best circumstances, there may be a need to talk about trailers, not in the 17-18 school year budget, but maybe the 18-19. And when that happens, that will require the utilization of probably any and all bank cap to match those new needs in the budget.
I just having reviewed the budget and the budget philosophy, and since I am a member of the facilities committee, I have to say that we are at least keeping up with our facilities, and that's a very big expense. And knowing that all of the housekeeping that has to be done very often, if we don't do our budgets properly, and some other schools systems, sort of don't pay attention to the facilities and the care and maintenance of the facilities, and they have to go out for referendums. And that's sort of a frightening thing, because keeping up with them, I think, is essential. It's less costly, even though it seems like millions of dollars spent on roofs and asphalt and things like that. It's less costly to do it within our budgetary constraints and also keep up with it so we don't get a crisis situation. So I've been watching that, so I think that's admirable that our facilities director and also the administration has been keeping a close eye on the needs of the district in terms of keeping the maintenance of the facilities up. Also, I think this year I've seen the most money spent for curriculum than we have in the last few years, which I'm glad to see, because I always thought that we were sort of shortchanging the actual instructional necessity of our system. So seeing the bump up, it's, again, no one really wants to spend a lot of money, but for science books and our math things, I'm glad to see that the curriculum is getting a boost. And it has always been my personal philosophy not to go to CAP, but I think we are constrained by the necessity that we have no control over, and that is the construction and building that we can't stop as a board. Unfortunately, it's being extended in other forms of our municipal government, but we pay the dues and we pay the price for that. So again, I think I voted in the past not to go to CAP, but I think we are compelled to serve our students, the students that have come in. So I'm going to change. I have a change of heart this year.
Thank you, Ms. Almenio. Anyone else? Mr. Braven?
You've been the presentation that you made indicated that we're really going through extraordinary growth. And in my mind, I would much rather pass a resolution that says you can go to what is ever legally admitted, legally appropriate for the growth. Keeping up with facilities might be a good idea in some minds. My thought about facilities is keeping ahead of it so you don't have the problems that will eventually grow. I personally will not vote for this. I think we should be able to give the administration the tools to go and build a budget which will give the students the appropriate tools that they need, and at the same time be prudent. So if you don't have to go to it, fine, you can come back to the board and tell us you did a great job. But I think this resolution puts handcuffs on you people. You've got extraordinary growth, you've got a lot of things going on in the district, and we're telling you you can go to CAP, but don't worry about the negotiations because they'll collapse and they'll come in under CAP. Don't worry about anything. We know you can do it. No, I'm going to vote against this because I don't think it's appropriate for the times.
Did you have any comment? No, sir. Oh, okay. Any other board member with a comment or question? Mr. Russo?
I have a question. We keep hearing about fair share and from the state aid, and I'm just wondering, what is that? What would be fair share? What amount?
The state of New Jersey established a consortium think tank to come up with what would be an adequate school district. And the amount of dollars to support an adequate school district, which we never strive to be in Monroe, is what's called your adequacy budget. The state's mechanism to fund the adequacy budget is a type of state aid called equalization aid, which, because of Monroe's affluence and property values, we receive none, zero, no state aid in that category at all, while South Brunswick gets almost $30 million a year in that one category. My answer to you would, what would be our fair share, would be the state supporting at least the adequacy budget by giving us equalization aid equal to that amount.
And for how long have we not been getting a fair share?
We have not received equalization aid in the 17 years that I've been employed by the district.
And as I understand it, we keep talking to the same people, and we get the same results.
That is a fair comment, yes.
Okay. Well, I think everyone, and the public in particular, should know that. Okay. Would we ever get that retroactive?
I will say to you that in that regard, I'm as frustrated as anyone here. I would love to have a download of the state aid award in a particular year that allows me to offset the currently used tax levy with state funds. A problem happened here in the 8-9 school year where the state cut our aid by 95% and in essence shifted $4.6 million of what was the state's obligation to the local taxpayers, where it's been ever since. We have done everything humanly possible to get a platform and get audience to fight and present information to get our fair share of state aid, including having the administration write legislation. I'm an accountant, I'm not a legislator, but we took it on and we wrote a very nice piece of legislation which is on the district website that actually passed the Senate Education Committee. I think what's left for us, and we talked about this with the board president, is to encourage the residents to go into a letter writing campaign, because no disrespect to the politicians, but I was told by my predecessor they're concerned about two things: getting elected and staying elected. And there's 40,000 residents in Monroe who can deliver the message a lot louder than those sitting at the table right here. A simple letter expressing their displeasure with the amount of funding to support the schools would go a long way.
I agree with that.
Mr. Mayo.
I lost my train of thought. As usual, Mike, you do a phenomenal job generating these numbers and letting us see what goes on, you know, behind the scenes. And I have to say, as a parent who has kids in this district and who talks to other parents, there is a great concern out there about, you know, the size of classes, and especially in the elementary schools where the classes are getting up to 28, 29 kids. And I feel that, you know, we need to take a look at that so that those kids can be in smaller classes. And I'm hoping that this will help lower those numbers. So I'm voting for it.
Thank you. Mr. Kaufman.
Yeah, so I said to myself, well, hopefully I'll be able to get through the next few board meetings and not open my mouth, but, you know, whatever. So here we are a year ahead of where we were last year, and the board got a lot of great press out of, you know, lowering the budget, going under cap for $600,000, but it didn't solve the problem. It just moved it. It moved it from last year to this year. So my point being is, as you move forward in time and you come through these philosophy things and you start putting things in, taking things out, be very cautious of when you go under budget, because you create a situation out with the public of incredible swings in tax rates. Because now you're going to have a dip, and then that dip is going to be propagated to now an increase, which doesn't always buy you anything other than being able to say, for 1 year, look what we did, right? As a future taxpayer, a lot of people out there may be questioning, how were you able to lower it 1 year and then come back the following year with such an incredible increase. So point being, be very mindful as you go through this process of what the fallout is between 1 year and a following year, because it's possible that that $600,000 from last year could have paid your bus thing for this year. That's all I gotta say.
Any other board member? Ms. Koloponowicz.
I too want to congratulate Mr. Gorski for a fantastic presentation. We've been doing these budget things for the last few years, and I think it's helping the public understand what we're doing and where we're going. Just to clarify for me, everything that is in this presentation are considerations for next year's budget. That's correct? And we're still going to be almost $3.7 million over the cap. So that means that some of these things might not be included in the budget, or we're going to have to cut other places in the budget. So this is just what we would like to have in the budget, and as we move forward, you as an administration is going to have to feel what's most important for kids. I like the fact too, as Ms. Arminio said, that we're doing a lot for kids this year through the curriculum, and I always try to vote for what's best for kids. And I think having, even through sports, having every kid involved in something gives them a connection to the school district. Those kids that don't get involved, they don't feel like they're part of the school district. So if we can give them more to do and have them feel that connection and then have their parents feel that connection, I think it's good for us. And I'm going to support this resolution.
Thank you. Any other board member? Let me just make a brief comment. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the entire administrative team, because I know they all had a share in this. And Mr. Gorski, it's always, you never cease to fail us, not fail us, I'm sorry, but to come up with an outstanding presentation for us. I apologize for that slip. We do have a serious problem here. This budget represents a philosophy. Well, the philosophy has to be sensitive to the taxpayers. It has to be sensitive to the students, the staff. How do you come up with this balance? So it takes a tremendous amount of work, and just sitting here and seeing a presentation is one thing, but knowing what goes behind it, the hours, the manpower in coming up with this is incredible. We have to keep this school system up to par, above par. We're an outstanding school system. These students deserve a quality education. Our taxpayers deserve really quality fiscal management, and I think we're working hard to provide that. I'll go into it a little bit more later about state aid, but you heard from board members and you heard from Mr. Gorski that the state aid just isn't there, and the only ones we can come to are the taxpayers for this. So I congratulate, this is an outstanding budget philosophy. I encourage my board members, my fellow board members, to vote in favor of it, and hopefully we'll be able to move forward in a positive sense, and that we'll be getting some state aid for what this school district needs. I guess we can go to a roll call vote now.
One more question.
Well, we spoke already. We spoke already. Yeah. We're going to roll call.
Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman.
No.
Ms. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Yes.
Mr. Nostine.
Yes.
Mrs. Carino.
Yes.
Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
Mr. Russo.
No.
And Mr. Rutsky, who is eligible to vote.
I'm eligible, I vote yes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Board President, motion passes 8 yea, 2 nay.
Thank you. Yes.
Just a very short thank you to the Board of Education for your continued support. I know this is not an easy decision, and I know you have a lot to consider, but I just wanted to thank you for your support.
Thank you. We can move to committee reports. Any committee chair wanted to report? Mr. Kaufman.
Sure. So we had a curriculum meeting this evening. we went over the curriculum material for AP Chemistry, Introduction to Engineering, Thermo and Equilibrium Chemistry, I think that's a 1, I don't have glasses. AP Psychology, Health, Health Grades, Form 5, Foods, and French Honors. We also heard a presentation on 2 upcoming clubs, which are Health Occupation Students of America, HOSA, and Economics and Finance team as well. The Economics and Finance team is not going to have any cost because it's like all online. And the Health Occupational Students of America, again, it's going to be their first year, so the first year is gratis. So that's what we talked about today, right? That's it.
Any questions for Mr. Cow? Any other committee chair? Mr. Nalstein.
Thank you. The Finance Committee met last evening at 6 o'clock. The first order of business, Mr. Moraldo and Dr. Alvik introduced an online an online personal finance course. I believe this came through curriculum a meeting or 2 ago, and the Finance Committee got the presentation in great detail, and it was very, very well received. The idea of the online course at this junction is it was offered as a pilot program last year as during the normal course of the school day. The idea now is to take it to the next step, which would basically be doing it as a 9th period class and or during the summer. What this does is twofold. It's going to introduce students that have never taken an online class to the online class structure, which is very prevalent in colleges going forward. So it's going to really help prepare our students for the world in which they're going to be presented going forward after high school. And additionally, as a nice added benefit, Mr. Moraldo went into detail. He actually did an economic study of the program to provide us with numbers of actually making revenue off of this. Basically, if it's offered during the summer, there would be a tuition charge for it, and if it was offered as a 9th period, there's a tuition charge offered to it with it also. What this does, this enables students that may want to take other elective classes during the course of the school year to now get this mandated class, I don't want to say out of the way, but it will give them the credits that they need for this mandated class. So the committee was very positive in this, and the committee did recommend the continued development of this course and possible policy and sidebar consideration, and this course would be available as early as next summer. The next item of discussion we talked about was the Delta T group proposal, which the board will see in there. It was actually an addendum to the backup data from Mr. Gorski. It's basically a paraprofessional temp situation because we don't have enough paraprofessionals for the special ed. So that was presented, and the committee recommended the proposal to the board. Mr. Gorski also went into detail about the lease purchase update. You'll remember from last meeting, we didn't have any bidders. Well, we did get bidders this time, and with some very favorable returns, and the committee did recommend that bid. The 2018 budget considerations, we basically went into the excess surplus calculations, pretty much of what we talked about this evening. We also had another item on the agenda for the evening, the adult ed program discussion, but that was tabled to the next meeting due to some time constraints because we had so many questions with the personal finance course. Mr. Board President, that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Notstein. Any questions for Mr. Notstein? Just as a point of clarification, Mr. Notstein, the Delta Group, the shortage in paraprofessionals for the bus, it's not just a shortage in paraprofessionals, that's for the bus.
I apologize for that.
That's just wanted to clear it up. Okay, seeing no other committee chair wanted to report. Oh, we do, I'm sorry. Ms. Omini?
No, I just wanted to say that we had a previously scheduled a policy meeting, but it was canceled, so I hope it didn't inconvenience anyone in the public, but we'll try to get a policy meeting before the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we can move to the public forum and invite members of, wait, am I missing something? I can invite members of the public up to the microphone to address items on the agenda. Please state your name, your address, and you'll have 3 minutes at the mic.
Good evening, Chrissy Skirby, 21 Preakness Drive. Under Board Action A, item number 3, about the McCabe Environmental Services to provide asbestos testing. What schools is that for?
It's on page 14.
On page 14 of the agenda, number 3 reads, "It is recommended that members of the Monroe Township Board of Education approve McCabe Environmental Services LLC to provide professional services for Adhera asbestos inspections." Adhera is the district's asbestos management plan, which is on file in Mr. Tague's office and gets sent to the state regularly. This would provide for inspections, testing, reporting for the 16-17 school year, and it would pertain to any schools or facilities where asbestos remains in the district, which are lessening, and those are all disclosed in the Adhera plan.
Could you tell us which schools they are at?
Asbestos was taken out of service in the early 80s, I believe. So I know there's some asbestos remaining at the Monroe Township Middle School. There's some asbestos remaining, I believe, at Woodland School, all of which is non-friable, most of which is probably in the floor tiles, and will, in the professional's view, would be fine to remain there unless if there's a disturbance like construction. That is why the district removed and remediated the remaining asbestos and pipe fittings at Barclay Brook School because of the anticipation of the need for construction, and now that school is free from asbestos. Applegarth School has been completely remediated from asbestos. And the newer schools, of course, don't have any because it's no longer used in the building process.
And then under Board Action, what page is this, number 10, A, residency contracts. It's to approve the residency contracts for the enrollment of the children. How many contracts are there?
I'm looking it up. I have it on the material here. Six.
6. Which developments, can you tell us which developments they're from?
They have all. What's that? Yeah, I have the
Oh,
address.
okay.
I couldn't really tell you the developments. I don't know the street, especially
Okay.
the new street names that well in the developments.
And how long are they, that has to be what, within 60 days they have to close on their homes?
Yes, exactly.
Last
If it goes,
month,
if it goes longer than that, then the parents are responsible for tuition.
okay. Last month, I had asked why we weren't including the enrollment numbers on the agenda for each of the schools, and they're not in this month's either.
Right. Traditionally, the enrollment numbers are not included in the August and September board reports because they're always a month behind. So I did pull up the enrollment reports just because you had asked that question last month, and I can give them to you. But if you look at previous years, it's always a month behind. So August, we don't have anything for July. September, we don't have anything for August. In October, through the rest of the school year, that's when the enrollment reports are included in the agenda. But if you'd like to know, I have them right here.
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
particularly how many new enrollment, I guess, at Oak Tree from August till now?
So
See,
for-
I'm just accustomed to coming to every board meeting for the last, I don't know, 8 years and The enrollment numbers are in every agenda. I'm just curious.
I checked last year, they were not in last year, and I didn't go back any further, but normally, in every district I've been in, but you don't report the enrollments for the summer. We can certainly provide that, but I know it was not in there last year. September.
In September, it's always, I think it's always in September.
Well, I checked it today.
Okay, well, do we know how many students are at Oak Tree currently?
As of now, as of September 14th, we have 677 students in Oak Tree. As of June 30th, we had 642.
Okay, so that's a pretty big increase, just from June to September.
Yes.
You had mentioned last month that if the enrollment continues to grow drastically before we can build another school, you would consider putting trailers in. At what point will the district consider doing something like that? Because our enrollment is increasing drastically.
Yeah, well, that's what we spoke about during the budget philosophy presentation. We don't anticipate the need to put trailers in for this school year. We're going to have to continue to monitor the developments and the registration. If you drive by the pictures of the developments that I showed, the one development at 33 in Applegarth, they're moving along pretty quickly. But again, once they get the houses up and they sell, how quickly people move in and register their children have yet to be determined. But we're planning not for this year, and we're hoping to not use them at all. But we may have to.
So at what point would you consider? How many students in a class would you feel would constitute needing to go to a trailer? Because right now, I think they're up to about 27, 28 in a class.
Right, and I think it's a little premature to speak about that right now, other than to say, we've been looking at every available space in a school. As an example tonight, we referenced the high school, and we've done that in the elementary schools as well, to see if there are other classrooms or other spaces that we can use for classrooms. And that would also require, and that was part of our budget philosophy, the hiring of new staff, because we want to keep our numbers low, as Mr. Mayo has stated earlier.
I understand, but what would you say is a class size that would be unacceptable? Because they're growing, it's growing very fast. If you obviously drive by what's going on the corner of 33 and Applegarth, they are going up very fast. When the development, the orchards went up, the students started enrolling in January. By June, we were up, I think, 60 or 70 students at Oak Tree in 6 months. They go up quickly, and the students come in very quickly. I know they lost the music room over at Oak Tree this year, so they're already down that. My concern is we're in the middle of a land study still. We're nowhere near, we're at least a year out for a referendum. If that fails, I don't know what that means. And then we have probably another 5 years till we get a new building. What is going to be the plan? Because we don't have 5 years at any of these schools.
Now, obviously, we don't. And a plan is flexible. It's, again, premature for me to say to you, well, when we reach this number, we're going to put a trailer in, or we're going to add another classroom. We are constantly looking at the available space that we have, the size of the number of students in our classrooms, what's available. And we're looking at the possible land transfer, if that's feasible. It's not a simple process of just deciding that, okay, it's available now. I wish it was. I wish I could move this along quicker. But we're moving as quickly as we can, and we'll determine as we move along what's needed to meet the educational needs of our students.
Okay, so what do you think is an adequate class size, and what do you think would be unacceptable?
Oh, great size for a class at an elementary level would be 20 students, and I know we're way above that. 25 students.
No, but at what point will you do something? I'm saying, will you wait till it gets to 35, 40, 45?
We have been doing things, and we'll continue to do what we need to do to meet the needs of the students. As we said already, we don't predict that we'll need trailers this year, but we'll be examining that on a daily basis and looking at that.
Okay.
She passed 3 minutes.
And when will the land study be done?
Well, they predicted 6 months, but we're hoping for it to be done a little bit earlier.
Okay, and then what is the process after the land study, if it is buildable?
Well, if it's, again, we have to determine, is that site a potential site that we can use? Is there opposition to that site, which there is? You know, how is that going to play out? If there is opposition and we can't build there, or we can only build one school instead of two, we have other options that we're looking at. So we'll have to look at all of those, believe me. It's not something, there's not a day that goes by that we don't have this on our minds and that we're not examining this. And we'll have to see then, if the land is not available, then we're going to have to look at the existing schools we have. Is there any other land available, which we've been exploring, and to our knowledge right now, there really is no other land. So we would have to look at our existing schools and say, can we build onto the land that's where our existing schools are? Can we add an addition? All those things are being considered. But again, it would be premature for me to say, well, this is exactly what we're going to do. There's too many contingents that are playing into this decision.
Okay, because I was under the assumption that if the land study came back okay, that it was buildable, that the board was going to move forward with that land.
Well, we would like to move forward with that, sure. But I think you were at the last board meeting, there has been some opposition to that by some of the residents, and we have to see where that goes.
I just want to add to that, Ms. Kirby, not only just what Dr. Kosak said, but the land technically hasn't been transferred to us yet. We can't build on property that
Oh, no,
we don't own.
I understand, but
Yeah.
you're using my tax money to survey it. I understand that.
Yes, but we have to find out if it's buildable, and that's what the engineering report is.
No, I understand that, but you are considering using the land. You know,
Yes.
you're not waiting until you get the deed, until it's deeded over to you. You're starting now. That's why I'm asking these questions. And it was my understanding that that would be the land that the district, if it was buildable, would use. And now I'm hearing that it may not be. And we don't have any other options for land?
As there is not a lot of available land in the township, however, that doesn't mean that we're not looking. And as I said, we do have land that is part of our current schools, you know, that our current schools are on, that we could use as an option. It wouldn't be our first option. We've considered all the different options that we have. Our first option is to use the land that we're hoping to have transferred to us from the township and to be able to put two schools. That's what we put out a couple months ago, an elementary and a middle school, and then add an addition to the high school. If that doesn't prove to be feasible, then we're going to have to go to our other options. We're going to have to look at that, and we're going to see, is part of the land available? Is all the land? Is none of the land available? And we have to proceed from there.
So that would then cost the district more time.
Well, unless you can move the engineers along and
No, I'm
convince
saying
everyone
if
not
we
to
don't- if we
oppose
don't-
it.
if we-
But I'm being very honest with you. These are the things that are constraints to us.
No, I understand, but I'm saying if we don't use that land, it will take more time in the process. Is that,
I just have the time is up, so if you
Okay.
can wrap
I
up.
don't
I
think
could-
it would take much more time.
no, okay, if I could just say, I was here last month, and I did recently just move into the Culture Run neighborhood. I am not opposed to using that land. And I know there are other residents in that neighborhood who are not opposed to it. I think it's a fabulous idea. I think it's a good use of our tax money, that land will be coming to us at no tax burden to the taxpayers. And I think it's unfortunate that some people are short-sighted and can't see that this would be the best thing for the district and the students.
Thank you, Ms. Gerber. Anyone else?
God bless you.
Yes, sir. Please state your name.
Hi, my name is John Elbasan. I'm at 8 Belmont Court. Board President, I want to thank you and the board and the administrators for your tireless effort in passing such a prominent budget, one that hopefully services our students, our residents, and our community alike, and for that I thank you. I also want to sincerely thank and acknowledge Ms. Skirby for her tireless effort in front of this board over the last 8 years, improving various activities that have proven fruitful to our township student body as well, especially highlighting the asbestos remediation that she championed several years ago for Applegarth Elementary School. I think what's strikingly important tonight, and I'm going to be up here for both public forums. I'm up here under the guidelines of the forum for tonight as it relates to what you've passed this evening. The second half is to highlight to the community some of the questions Ms. Skirby brought to light in terms of, is there other land available in the township? And I will share that information in detail with maps that I have, and hopefully we can present it on an easel so that everyone has an opportunity to see that. I think we're all passionate as homeowners in this township to make the township stronger and better and hire really world-class educators and have world-class administrators run the school. I think where we fear and what we hear from working in this township now for 15 years with residents is a lot of residents are packing up. They get their kids through the school system and they say, $16,000 a year for this 4-bedroom colonial just doesn't make sense anymore. The fixed income earner that bought in Concordia.
Excuse me, Mr. Albertson, your comments at this portion have to pertain to the agenda?
They do, and I'll touch on that.
You can get to it, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I guess what I'm highlighting here is just the impact, right? And so coming back to budget, something Mr. Kaufman said, which is my poignant request to the board, is that within the budget, it would be helpful if Mr. Gorski would have an impact study that shows a forecast over the next 2 to 3 budgetary fiscal years that takes into account the potential build-out of 2 schools, the redundancy of administration and personnel that would be required to run those 2 schools, so that we can understand better the tax burden that we will face into the future. Because we agree, getting a bill as a surprise around August of every year and seeing it swing several $100s, if not $1,000 or more every year, is a burden. And this is a communication that has been loud and clear by the township. So is the board president willing to work within the board and the administration to provide forecasting data so that all these resolutions that we're passing and the impact of them over the next 2, 3, and 5 years can be spelled out to the community so that we can hold the board as well as the township accountable, as well as ourselves accountable to the impact that it may have on our rateable.
Let me answer that.
That's a direct question.
When we're considering this, we try to consider all the ramifications of it. And clearly, the cost to the taxpayer, the cost to the district, really, is a key consideration. I hope that answers your question.
It's not a committal, so it helps answer that we're doing a 1-year by 1-year study, even though we're forecasting impactful projects that have capital expenditures and personnel impact well into the future that we won't know unless we are in that fiscal year. Is that a fair statement, Mr. President?
Sure.
It's not exactly. This budget philosophy presentation tonight is not a budget by any means. It is, as Mr. Nustine compared last year, it is the board telling us what kind of cake to bake. Do you want devil's food or angel's food? It's a directive to administration to begin to prepare a budget in accordance with the overall goals of the board. It is a 1-year strategic plan. But I will tell you that we are always focused on 3 years at one point in time, not just 1 year's budget. There are no projected expenditures in this budget presentation tonight for the aid of the board in developing a philosophy that pertain to future costs with the bond referendum. When we opened this high school, the state pulled out from under us a cap waiver called opening a new school cap adjustment. And we had to fit $1.8 million of costs associated with outfitting this school in the general fund budget, which required a complete review and removal of a lot of the items that were already in there. So that's all I can tell you now based on past history. And as this bond referendum plan materializes, and as I have talked with our superintendent and board president, there will be a need to plan on how to get that magnitude of annual budget appropriations amassed very quickly without that cap waiver.
I appreciate that, Mr. Gorski. I think in response to our personal lives, in our professional lives to be specific, we're faced with the burden of providing to our businesses and corporations that we service forecasts that are 3 years and 5 years in the making, that take into account various different impacts that we may hypothetically take advantage of or we may not. That's the rigor from a fiduciary responsibility that we're held to in the private sector.
I just have to ask you to wrap up. Your time is up, actually, beyond that already.
That's fine, and I'll be
Thank
happy
you.
to. I'll leave off with a public service announcement that there will be a new election cycle where there will be seats up at this board, and I think I encourage all residents to look at those seats that are available and who those seats will be filled by and what their mandate is for the betterment of this township
That
as well as
doesn't
this
pertain to
board.
the budget, so thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for your...
And also, lastly,
We
yeah.
can't
No, I understand.
continue.
But in terms of
If you
in terms of the-
understand, then you have to
Mr.
let
Mr.
someone else go.
Ryback, can you speak to me about how you established right now the minutes allocation for this public forum?
What I'm speaking to you is that your time is up.
My time is up.
And I cannot allow this to go on anymore.
I'll defer my next question for the next open forum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Good evening, Ram Rangnath, 6 Owens Drive, Southfield Estates. Again, thanks to everyone involved really in putting together the vision and really openly discussing the thoughts and the budget and kind of what we're going to be seeing for next year. Just going through that, I just want to second the previous gentleman's comment that, it is as part of the vision, the projection part is important, and it is really beneficial to see 3 to 5 years out what will be happening. Otherwise, it feels a little blinded. And in fact, I think if that rigor had been happening, I guess, over the last few years, while it was nice to see the picture of the backhoe and so on there, right? We need to be actually talking about this when those permits were actually issued by the township, right? So that's the power of forecasting and bringing that. So again, I would second that and see how do we incorporate that in the future vision and budgeting process. That's point one. Point two is, again, I support Chrissy Kirby's points, and again, appreciate all the effort she puts in place. And I think the important point she raised and other folks have raised is really you need to be looking at the operating expenses of the new location, putting out schools in the new locations. It's not just building it, it's like the buses and the administration. There are a lot of these things that need to be looked at. So when you actually take all that into account, and I guess there's a lawsuit also now, right? I think some homeowners have sued saying that is preserved land and so on. It makes a lot of sense to be just extending or building adjacent to the existing Oak Tree Elementary and Applegarth, for example. There's a baseball field. I've not seen anyone using it. And again, you'll avoid a lot of the duplication of cost of buses, teachers, administration. And so given all these concerns and this growth, to me, it seems like you need to quickly start looking at Plan B and looking at some various alternatives before we start really hitting that 35-40 per classroom in Oak Tree, at the rate we are going. Then the third aspect is, we talked about some of the issues. I think Mr. Gorski made very eloquent points and very helpful about how kind of we're not getting that 30 million, for example, that South Brunswick is getting, and we're getting shortchanged in many ways. It'd be helpful if the Board of Education and other members involved here can use some of our Facebook forums to really start to advocate some of these things so that the 40,000 people can really start to be partners with you and start to take these, right, to Trenton or wherever it is, or even within our elections here within the township. I think that transparency, that information, if you can help us, we can help you and we can help each other.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and last comment is I'm hoping that one of the only things I liked about what Christy has done, proposing the fairness formula, right, for the state funding. I think it's about a $1,600, $1,700 benefit for the Monroe taxpayers. Hopefully some of that comes through and that helps us in the process. Otherwise, we are really looking at some increased taxes pretty soon.
I have to say thank you at this point. Your time is up.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you very much for your comment. Anyone else from the audience? Okay, not seeing anyone from the do we have somebody else? Yes.
My name is Samara, 1 Harvest View, Monroe.
Could you talk into the microphone, please?
So, Samara, 1 Harvest View. Somebody mentioned about the fairness, well, not somebody, Mike mentioned it. They said South Brunswick is getting more money than Monroe. What are we doing wrong, and what is South Brunswick is doing right to get the funding? But this has been happening 17 years, right? That's what you said. So what are we doing something that South Brunswick is, they're doing right, they're getting big money, we're not. And second thing is, you said people can raise the voice, and who should we raise the voice to? Is it like state, we send letters to the state governor?
I can address that when I speak in a few minutes, because those are some of the things exactly that I'm going to
Okay, thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President. To the gentleman's comments, what are we doing wrong? That South Brunswick is getting equalization aid to support their adequacy budget to the tune of almost $30 million a year, and Monroe gets zero. It's based on a funding formula that considers the distribution of state resources based upon a district's ability to come up with what's called a local fair share. And the local fair share takes into consideration income and property wealth. The income comes from the aggregate New Jersey 1040s that you file with the 4-digit municipal code. And we have a higher income than South Brunswick, and we have higher property values than South Brunswick. Both of those factors, according to the state formula, result in the inequality. But I argue, and we have vehemently, that there needs to be either more of a graduation of that distribution so that some districts aren't left with nothing, like Monroe, or a minimum amount per student. And we're exploring all those avenues, and we've been fighting for that for a long time. Unfortunately, every time we visit them, it's the same administration. At one point in time, we actually considered suing the state, individually or with a consortium of other school districts of the same suffering. But our legal counsel from Wilentz told us at the time that it would be fruitless, and although it was some very attractive attorney fees involved, she advised us against it. So we've taken every effort to try to remedy this, and we're not finished yet. But from our vantage point right now, the most impactful one, the one that could stimulate change the greatest, is for the politicians to hear from the community and to hear that it is unfair for the residents of this town to provide for 88% of the cost of the education to support this school district. It's a public school. We're required to implement numerous state mandates, and we receive a very inequitable amount of funding in order to do so. And sir, one final thing, what we are doing right in this district is living in that environment and making the most out of every dollar and every consideration for the taxpayers who are overburdened. And that's why we worked very hard last year to pay a dividend back by going $600,000 under cap.
Thank you, Mr. Horsey. Anyone else from the public before we move on? Not seeing anyone from the public, we can move to our superintendent's report. Dr. Kosak.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. School's open for students on Tuesday, September 6th, and except for a couple of minor speed bumps, pun intended, with transportation, school openings went extremely well. We feel that we have received resolved the minor transportation issues, and we are happy that the procedures we put in place in transportation worked well. Dr. Albick and I visited each of the schools, and you could feel the excitement in the air. The kids were excited as well, but it really is nice to see, And as I say over and over and over again, we try to promote the positive occurrence that go on every single day in our classrooms through our Facebook and our Twitter page and our website and our newsletter. And even with that, we can't really bring out enough the wonderful education that's being delivered in the classrooms, in every one of the classrooms. The teachers, the staff, the administrators, they're all doing a wonderful job, as well as the parents who are sending us their children. All the building renovations that were planned for during the summer were completed before school opened last week, and on behalf of the Board of Education, I hope I can speak for the Board of Ed on this, that I would like to extend a thank you to all of our staff for their hard work during the summer. Our back-to-school parent sessions have started, and I've been attending, and with the middle and high school, it's a little different. There's not a public forum for all the parents, but at Woodland Elementary School there was, and at some of the rest of the elementary schools there will be. And I'll be speaking at each of the schools just about our continued student enrollment growth and what that means, and the need for a referendum, and how we will need to work together, and we'll need the support of everyone to work together to ensure that we provide the classrooms and the classroom space in the schools necessary to continue to provide an excellent education for our students. On the agenda for the board, I would like to just bring to your attention a couple items that were new from when we sent the agenda out on Friday. Ms. Varicella did send out the notice that these are new items, but in case you didn't get a chance to see your email today, I just want to let you know, under personnel, items B and C, we received 2 resignations this morning from staff members. They'll be 60 days out. So that's items B and C. Items M, N, O, Q, and R is leaves for various employees. There is a typographical error in item R. The second sentence has a mistake. Please change the word she to he. Section BB, double B, items 21 to 23 are new items. It's a volunteer coach. It's our communication facilitator replacement, basically the person who puts the Falcon Flyer together, and a leave replacement for one of our teachers. And in the column in section BB, the first column, number 16, again, a typo, I apologize. We
Page,
try to catch
please.
everything.
What page?
Oh, I'm sorry.
10.
I don't have a page number.
10.
10?
Page 8, thank you.
Page 8?
Oh,
Yes.
BB.
What are you saying, 10?
8.
8.
I thought he said,
BB.
Yeah.
Yeah,
8.
yeah. And number 16, there should be the name for Dr. Pangelis, thank you. Dr. Pangelis, it's instead of, that should be in column 1 with all the rest of the personnel. It's just a typo. In section double C, 13 and 14, it's just a correction of a step-on guide for our paraprofessionals and a cafeteria paraprofessional replacement. Under board action of the superintendent section, right under personnel, there are field trip requests. We have some very talented students who are chosen to perform with the All-State Band and/or chorus, and that was added into the agenda, just so the board knows that the transportation is being provided for by either the parents or the New Jersey Music Education Association. Okay, with that update, Mr. President, that concludes my superintendent report, and I would like to move on to the personnel section.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any questions about that before I move on? Mr. Arminio, you okay? I know I went through a lot of change. They're all on the agenda. I just wanted to bring
Right.
it to your attention.
I got it. Thank you.
With that, I would like to recommend the personnel items A through double D for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Mr. President, we would be remiss under the personnel items if we did not acknowledge personnel action item A on page 2, which is the retirement of Mrs. Barbara Dahl, the District Human Resource Director, effective January 1st, 2017. Mrs. Dahl took on a Herculean task with the director position for HR out of a void of any department in the district of 1,200 people in the human resource area. And she has done a fine job supervising 2 staff and reformulating a lot of processes to better serve the district and the staff and the taxpayers in that regard. Prior to that, Mrs. Dahl served the district as the benefits coordinator and worked closely with me to bring Gallagher Benefit Services to the district, which has saved the district an enormous amount of money in health benefit costs. So on behalf of Dr. Kozak and Dr. Alvick and I, we thank Barbara Dahl very much for her service and wish her a happy and healthy retirement.
I second that. Anyone else on the board for discussion? And then, in that case, we can vote.
Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman. Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Yes, but on A, I would like to say no, but I'm going to say yes with regret.
So noted. Mr. Nostine.
Yes.
Mrs. Carino. Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
Mr. Russo.
Yes, and congratulations.
And Mr. Rutsky. Board President, personnel action items A through D passes.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. We can move on to board actions on page 10. I need a motion to approve board action items A through Q.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Items A through Q? Not seeing any discussion. We have a roll call vote.
Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman. Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes to all recuse on G and P.
G and P, thank you. Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Yes.
Mr. Nostine.
Yes.
Mrs. Carino.
Yes,
G and N, so noted. Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
Mr. Russo.
Yes, and recuse on G and N.
G and N. Thank you. Mr. Rutsky.
I abstain with the exception of items J, K, L, M, and O. I vote yes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Board President, motion passes.
Thank you. You might as well hold the microphone because we're up to the Business Administrator's report.
Board President and members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, it is recommended that board action items A through I be approved by consent roll call.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Can vote.
Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman. Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yeah.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Yes.
Mr. Nostine.
Yes, and recuse on hotel. H for hotel.
So noted. Mrs. Carino.
Yes.
Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
Mr. Russo.
Yes,
And Mr. Rutsky.
So again, I abstain with the exception of A4, and D and F, where I vote yes.
Thank you, sir. So noted. Mr. Board President, motion passes. That concludes my report.
Thank you. So I just have a few words for everyone. I know we were all talking about the budget philosophy and, what its impact on the district. We're talking about state aid. Last month, this Board of Education, I'm proud to say, unanimously passed a resolution really outlining the lack of state aid we have and our resolve to improve it. Mrs. Kolpanowicz correctly, I couldn't agree more, said we can't leave it there. We have to do more. It's been done before, and we need to do more. And if we're going to get a little success here, we need the public. You heard Mr. Gorski outline to you the years of our attempts to deal with legislators. Trenton, as I said last month, moves very slow, and very often it seems to be nothing more but a battle scene between legislators. but nothing seems to be getting done that's going to help this school district. We see other school districts getting schools built after we're told there's no money. So that's kind of a shock for all of us here. We need you, the public, to stand up and voice your complaints to Trenton. A letter writing campaign. Who are you going to write to? Your representatives, the governor. That's easy enough to find out, to get that information. We have to start turning this around. We can't let this go on anymore. It's unfair that there are other districts getting so much money per student and we get nothing. It's unfair. It's unfair that we have citizens that are paying so much money for the schools because they care. They want the children of this district to get quality instruction. Nothing less than that is acceptable. But we can only come to you for that because the state just says no. And when they say no and then give other districts schools and pay 85% of a bond referendum for one district and is building 2 schools in another district, I sit and say to myself, well, I thought you just said there's no money. So there is money, but not for Monroe. That's unacceptable. We need you to join us in this effort. We need you to start to write a letter, to make a phone call, to voice your complaint, because what's going on, what's been going on, is totally unacceptable. I thank you for that. Is there any other Board of Education business? Ms. DeMaio?
I have a few things.
Sure.
First of all,
Do you want this?
oh, yeah. First of all, I'd like to say that a bunch of us went to teacher's opening, and Mr. Schneider's percussion ensemble played, and they did a fabulous job as usual. But it was it was really nice, and it really added a nice element to the day. That's the first thing. Secondly, I went to the New Jersey State Board of Education meeting last Wednesday, and there were a few things. Commissioner Hespy is resigning effective October 1st, and Kimberly Harrington is going to be acting commissioner. There was a resolution in recognition of Parent-Teacher Association PTA Membership Month. And another thing which was interesting was that there was a new regulation requiring school buses manufactured on or after July 17, 2016 to be equipped with sensor to determine the presence of objects in the front or the back of the bus, which I noticed you had in your budget philosophy. I also went to the Senate Education Committee meeting on Monday, which was very interesting. There was a bunch of bills on security that went through, and that got passed through committee that people may be interested in. One requiring school buildings to be equipped with emergency light and panic alarm linked to local law enforcement. Another one was annual school security training for school employees to be conducted collaboratively with emergency responders, and requires law enforcement officer to annually attend at least one school security drill. And requires certain school security measures to be incorporated in the architectural design of new schools. But what was really interesting was a resolution brought forth by Senate President Sweeney and Senator Ruiz, who is head of the Senate Education Committee. And this resolution to create a school aid funding fairness commission. And this commission will be comprised of 6 public members appointed by various people. And it will be the duty of this commission to study the impact of the adjustment aid and state aid growth limit provisions of the School Funding Reform Act of 2008 and to make recommendations for revising those provisions in order to provide full funding of the School Funding Reform Act of 2008 over a 5-year period and to bring fair and equitable funding to all school districts for enrollment growth over a multi-year period. And what's interesting about this, it's not a bill, it's a resolution, and this passed out of committee, and once it gets passed by the Senate and the companion resolution gets passed by the Assembly, then it becomes enacted, and it does not need the governor's signature for that. So I thought everybody might be interested, because that will have an impact on us.
If I'm not mistaken, is that, I know it goes right into legislation, but is it an up and down vote? It doesn't need, I know it doesn't need the governor's approval. It's an up and down vote? Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you. I'm sorry, are you finished?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's it.
Post that on our, would it be appropriate to post that on our website? That whole,
The resolution? Yeah, I mean, it's
well,
public
no,
knowledge.
I mean, it's.
No,
What?
you can ask,
I'm
you're
asking
asking me.
Mr. Ryback.
Oh, all right.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Kalpanowicz.
I have a few things. The first one, I think that it would be helpful for us and the administration to get the addresses of our legislators and the governor and put it on the website. And this way it's there for people and they don't have to look it up, because they have to look it up, they might not do it. But if it's there and available,
We could do that.
we might get more people to write a letter.
Can I just interject?
Sure.
Well, you know what, let her finish
But
and
it's
then,
exactly what she was talking about.
That's
okay.
Just, and I would also recommend we put Senate President Sweeney's address on there too, for people to write to.
I got an invitation this evening to attend a cocktail reception with our 14th district legislators tonight. So it was Senator Linda Greenstein, Assemblyman Wayne D'Angelo, Assemblyman Dan Benson. And it was from 5:30 to 7:30. Obviously, I left there early to get to here. But I had the opportunity to speak to Assemblyman Dan Benson, and I talked about the 427 new students that we were expecting next year, and that the level of growth is way more than the 200 to 250 that we're experiencing or we expected. And they understand what's going on. They would like to help us. Not everybody in Trenton feels the same way. So again, as Mr. Ryback said, it's important to get the parents and the community and our seniors together to write these letters. I know Jill talked about the commission, and Assemblyman Benson talked to me about the commission. And I think the good piece is that whatever they come up for has to go to it for a vote. So whether it's voted up or down, it will be voted upon. How long it will take, I have no idea. We probably won't ever get our full share of fair funding. Say that 3 times. But to get more is better than to stay where we are right now. And that's what he said. He felt that we should be able to get more than we are getting now, but we're probably not going to get $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 per child. So I think it's important. I've spoken to him, I've spoken to others to get everybody out there to do the same thing. And they do understand. Trenton doesn't always work the way we want it to. The next thing is I happened to be at Barnes & Noble the other day, and the New Jersey Monthly magazine came out with the top 100 high schools. So I grabbed it because I was excited to see where we were on the list. And I looked through it, and I didn't find us. So I bought it, and I took it home. In 2014, we were number 82. So I know that to get there, it took many years of hard work. And it's something that when we made it in 2014, we anticipated keeping or moving up the list so that we, instead of 82, we wanted to be number 1. But this year, we're number 126. So I was disappointed to see that. It's very hard to get up into the top 100. But I think once you do that, you want to stay and not say, yay, we did it once, so that's it. We don't need to do it again. I know that they changed some of the criteria to get on the list. So the indicators are grouped into 3 categories: the school environment, the school performance, and the student outcomes. And I would like to find out, I don't know about the rest of the board, what happened to make us fall out of the top 100? Where did we fail, if we failed, or what happened to make us go down, and how we can work together to get us back in the direction we're back in the top 100 high schools. So I don't know if that's possible, but I think it's important to get there.
Sure, absolutely.
And I have one more thing.
Do you want me to comment on this now?
Sure.
All right, thank you, Mr. Collins. Yeah, I was disappointed as well. A couple of things to keep in mind. That data is 2 years old that they're using. So it's from 2 years ago what we're being ranked on. Not last year, and certainly not this year. That's part of it. They did change the criteria, and Dr. Albick and I had a conversation. From my understanding, the data that they might be relying on from the state might not be 100% correct, specifically in regard to the number of students who participate in arts classes. Because that number, I know it's not correct just because of what we offer our students and the enrollment. So that had an impact on that study as well. I'm using that data from that as well as other publications that ranked us higher, much higher. That is a local, New Jersey Monthly. But I am using that data to continually look at and say, how can we continue to improve? I'll be very interested in seeing how this past school year and this upcoming school year of how we fare. But it would be nicer if it was more recent than always looking back 2 years.
I know the list comes out every 2 years.
Yeah, and even the number of students, like last year, that took part in our advanced placement test, which is part of the criteria, and it scored 3 or better. We did very well on that. We always do well on that, and I didn't compare that particular data set, but that seems to have been going up. As well as, Dr. Alvick, are there other parts of that as well that I'm missing?
It has to do with how we code some of our courses on scheduling, and that's where some of the art classes were missed. For example, graphic arts was missed as one of our art classes. It should have been included in that. The state is constantly changing how we need to code the courses. I know Mr. Washington and I have gone to several workshops over the last couple of years, and every time we go, they tell us something different. So we're trying to keep up with all of that with how we code our scheduling courses.
I just wanted to see if there was anything that the board can do to support something that maybe we're not doing right now, and if there's something that you could bring back to us that if we have to add or subtract or something, because I think it would be nice to get back up into that.
I think one thing that'll help is we're focusing a lot on data. Last year and again this year, and we're really looking to drill down into the data and to see how did other schools do better than us, and what parts did we do better than some of the other schools. So even looking at even like student-faculty ratio, the top school, Chatham School District, was 12.4 for students to faculty. We were 12.9. East Brunswick, which was rated much higher, was 13.2. So their ratio was higher than ours. The number of AP courses, or International Baccalaureate courses offered, the top-rated district had 28. We offer 28. East Brunswick, not to pick on East Brunswick, it's just a neighboring district I just happened to look at, they only offer 25. So when you look at it, sometimes it depends on how you look at the data and what lens do you use to look at. The number of students taking at least one AP course. Now this is where we were low, percentage-wise. So that's something we want to look at. Can we encourage some of our students to take more AP courses? One of the things that it doesn't speak to is there are a lot of students who might take college courses and not take the AP course. So it doesn't mean that they're not being successful. They're going at it from a different route. It's almost better to take it at the college than it is to take the AP course, because not every single college will accept the AP course credits. So again, at face value, it looks like, well, we're not doing as well, but when you look at it in a different way, we'd have to look at the data in that sense as well. Again, the art classes that Dr. Alvick already spoke to. The number of students who score over 1,500 on the SAT. And I'm not sure, this has to be the old SAT, I would think, because it was 2 years ago, right? That was the old SAT. 1,600, not counting the 2,400 with the writing part, because a lot of colleges didn't take that. The top school in their ranking had 74%. We had 51% of 1,500 or higher. 1,600 being a perfect score. I applaud the students in Chatham. If they have 74% of their students almost reaching perfect scores, that's pretty impressive. I don't know too many other districts that are coming close to that, but I applaud them for that. That's commendable. That's something we'll certainly look to do to see if our students can score higher. A lot of colleges and universities don't even use the SAT because not everyone does well on the SAT. So there are a lot of other indicators that colleges look at, and I think if you look at the universities that our students are getting into, that's pretty impressive. The percentage of AP courses that students receive 3 or higher, 3 being the level where the colleges will take credit. We had 78%. Again, not bad. Top school had 91. So, you know, I applaud them. But, so these are the kind of statistics that we're looking at, and we're going to continue to look at. And part of the goals that we have for this year is, you know, the partnerships with colleges, also looking at how our students fare in college and continue in a 4-year college. So we'll continue to explore all that, because we would like to be number one. If nothing else, at least in the top 100. But again, keep in mind, this is one journal that ranked us, and other journals ranked us much higher. So I applaud the schools that scored higher than us, and we'll continue to look to see what they're doing and how we can improve. But again, we're also ranked higher in with other rankings or other ratings as well.
And then I just have one more. Two township activities coming up for families. The first is the annual Green Fair being held on October 8th at the high school from 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And the second is the annual Oktoberfest down at the rec center on Sunday, October 16th, 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Both of them are really good family events. And that concludes my report.
I asked Mr. Russo to go, of course.
Just what I wanted to say earlier, in making an effort to get the public to help the board, would it be possible to draft a letter, and getting back to the letter writing campaign, have it posted on the website, district website, where parents and students who want to send those letters off can draw that letter down, sign it, and send it, because the addresses will be there. In this way, maybe some of the nuances, the sentiment will be maybe written, which is more appropriate maybe for communicating what we want.
Although I think that's an excellent idea, and we're talking very seriously about getting a letter writing campaign together, and I have a meeting with the PTO and PTA coming up in the beginning of October, and I wanted to, that was one of the agenda items. I would have to check the legality. We have to be very careful with a public school district website that we don't do anything that's perceived as being political. It seems to make sense to me for what you're saying. We're giving the information, we'll make it bipartisan, Republican, Democrat. We're just asking for parent support, but I will have to check that legally to see if we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just have a question, Dr. Kozak, to what you said before. What are the other journals where we are ranked higher? Like, can you?
well, it's not, I don't know if it's a journal, was it Niche is the one that's up on the website? I think Newsweek?
Newsweek.
U.S. News and World Report or Newsweek? I didn't write that down, so I'm not real sure. But I think it was one of the two of those. Newsweek, I just heard someone say Newsweek in the audience. U.S. News and World Report, okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Kaufman.
So I just want to go back on a couple things tonight. When a member of the public came up and asked you questions about what we're doing with the new referendum and thinking of moving forward, I want to clarify something I thought I heard. One of the things that you had said was, you know, there's a lot of things that are going on. We're going to be looking at a lot of different things. And one of the other things that are going to be under consideration is local opposition or local feedback to you know, where the school is going to go. Forgetting about where it's being proposed to go, I want to take that off the table. So for a general discussion, so I can have a clear understanding, what do you mean by that? Because if a property is deemed to be feasible for our use, if it meets all of the DEA, if it meets all of the criteria that we need, the wetlands and all of those, believe me, myriad of things that it has to fall into, how is local opposition going to impact the decision? No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the land has to be transferred to us from the township.
I don't mean the mechanics. All that has to fall. I get that. All of that has to happen. Again, not assuming the land we talked about before.
Right.
But taking that off the table, we're going to be looking to put something up somewhere.
Right.
And generally speaking, nobody wants it in their backyard, believe me.
Right.
I got a little experience there, right? So that pushback from local people near the area, it's coming, whether it's the place where we're thinking now or a future place that we don't even know about. Because, I don't know, maybe we'll invade Cranberry, and I personally think we can take them, and we can get more land, right? But something is going to pop up, whether it's this land or somewhere else. How is the local residential feedback going to either influence or not influence you to make a decision?
Yeah, with all due respect to the residents, because you're right, no one really wants that school put in their backyard, and we have to look out. I think it is our job that we look out for what's in the best interest of all the students in the school district. And we have to look at what's going to provide some sort of a benefit to all areas of the township as well, which also played into our thoughts of where schools were being placed and where the growth was occurring, and what would it mean for residents maybe in the north end of town as opposed to the south end of town, or the east or the west. So all those things are considered, but really what drives it for us is we're looking at 1,500 students coming in, and we broke it out with the demographic reports. We're looking at, in the elementary, maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8, 800 students, so many at the middle school, which is already over capacity, so we wanted to build another middle school to relieve the stress on our current middle school for those unhoused students that are already in our schools. And then the high school, where all of our students eventually get to, this building, that's why we went and we drove up to South Brunswick and we looked at other districts who had experienced the same growth maybe 10 years ago and who have high schools with a capacity of around 3,000 students. So I wouldn't say that a resident's opposition to a school being built there would stop us from proceeding if we had the land and if we had the availability. And I say that with all due respect to all the residents, because I think you're exactly right. We're going to experience opposition no matter where we propose a school. We also have to see where can we build and properly house students. If we have a lot of student growth going on in the southern end of town, around 33 in Applegarth, in the existing developments there, then we have to see where can we build something that will accommodate the students without a long bus ride. So all those type of things are considered, and the only reason I mention the opposition is that we don't have that land yet that the township offered to us. So it sounded great when it was offered to us, but like a lot of things, you have to fully investigate it. And that takes a period of time. And then at our last board meeting, some residents got up and spoke that they were opposing that, and that's what I was speaking to. It wasn't really that they were opposing us, but I think they were maybe opposing the township, but whatever. But until that land is ours, we have to look at all the different areas in town. Ms. Kaufman, did that answer your question?
No, that clears it up, because, like I said, having gone down this road before and knowing what last week I used the term, the darkness is coming, right? This type of thing has a tendency to both make a community great and put up some road barriers and some divisions, and people start, sitting on one side of the room versus the other side of the room, and it's not fun, right? So, for the folks that are going to look you're going to be your stakeholders, the ones that are going to get out there and try and push the vote, you need to make sure that if there's going to be opposition to it, yes, we're sorry that there's going to be opposition, but for the greater good of the community, we kind of have to press forward on this, because you don't want to pull the rug out from your supporters who are there to help you sell the product and then not have you be just as willing to stand up and to defend the decisions you guys all have to make, because it's the best for the community. So I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. Because it was also mentioned earlier that, people are coming in and people are leaving the district and going out because costs are going up. Unfortunately, as we talked about tonight, the math doesn't jive to that. You may have people leaving for a wide range of reasons, but you still have hundreds and hundreds of new homes being built. And from where I live, the houses are sold, but people moving in have 2, 3, 4, 5 kids. So the aggregate number is only accelerating and only going up. That's only, even when we were in 2008, 2009, the worst economic period of the United States, it was like it didn't affect Monroe. The sales kept, I don't know what it is about this place, but the sales kept coming and the growth kept coming. So, okay, one more little thing. I promised, I said I was never going to speak up. Really tiny thing. If you're speaking about an agenda item and a board member has a question and wants to come back to him just as a thing, you didn't advance the agenda. He should have had a chance to ask his follow-up question. That's just,
We'll take.
So I'll shut up.
It's okay. I just want to comment on what you said. Doing what we're doing, we can't please everybody. That's a given. But we have to do what's best for this entire community, and that's what I know we're going to be working, all of us, very hard to accomplish.
Very quickly, I too have had experience in referendums and land acquisitions and land acceptances. And I think the difference this time is that the board and the administration is doing due diligence. They're making sure that there are no obstacles. Yes, does it seem like that's postponing the situation? I think it's better than than going through the gamut like we went last time. We would have saved maybe money and time had we done our due diligence in advance as we're doing now. So there are caveats about land and purchases and availability and DEP issues. So I think that what seems to be a slowdown of the proceedings is prudent in order not to really go so far and then have a standstill, because there are other issues, either legal or environmental. So I think that the difference is we're doing the due diligence up front instead of having a crisis in the middle of the process. Thank you.
Mr. Russo, you have my apologies for before.
Thank you very much. On that, I have one more.
Sure.
Again, it's the letter writing campaign, just something to consider. Many of the residents may be new, so having a draft that they can pull down off the website in that way would help, because they'd have some historical background, because they wouldn't know what to write.
Okay, is there any other board business? Yes.
Sorry, I just thought of this.
Don't be sorry.
It was announced at the State Board of Ed meeting last week that they are changing the percentage of the, currently in a teacher's evaluation, those teachers that there's, those teachers that teach that have a equivalent part to them, were 10% of PARC was going towards this teacher evaluation. And the New Jersey DOE just announced that they are raising that to 30% without public input or anything like that. And I just wanted to say I am vehemently opposed to that because I don't think PARC has been tried and true and hasn't been, and I think it's very unfair to teachers to have 30% of their evaluation based on a test that's only a couple years old.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else? In that case, we can move to the next public forum where you are not bound to the agenda, but I will ask you to be bound to the 3 minutes. State your name and your address. Is it Mr. Chiarella?
Ken Chiarella, 116 Pergola Avenue. I just have 4 points. I'm going to make them quickly, and then you can answer what you want to answer. I apologize in being late with this, but I was sick. I spent some time in the hospital, but from what I understand, the superintendent was given a bonus. What I'd like to know, is that true?
No.
No.
No. No. I'll take that right now. As part of the contract, he has merit goals in the second and third year of his contract.
Okay.
So the board came up with merit goals. There were 2 quantitative and 1 qualitative that we gave him. He has to earn that. He has to accomplish it. He was not given any raise. It depends on whether he accomplishes the goals or not.
Okay. As far as the going forward with the referendum, I just want to caution the board that without land, or land that, or, basing our referendum on land that's locked up in a legal battle is not smart. We had a legal battle over this high school, for those of you who are here and remember that, and we went out for a referendum. We got caught up in a legal battle, and it cost taxpayers $40 million more. So I would just say that if we're going to go forward with a referendum, that we have to use caution, and that we should be really doing our due diligence to make sure that we have land, that it's in our hand, that it's not something that's promised to us, that it's not tied up in some way, and that we're gonna really have it. As far as the letter writing campaign, I think that's great, but I think we've done a lot of things, the board's done a lot of things in trying to get legislation passed, speaking to various elected representatives, and it's gone nowhere. I think what this Board of Ed needs to do is contact other factor groups, other districts that are like our group, our district, and sue the state. I think that's the way to go. I don't think they're going to listen to a letter writing campaign or email or text messages or anything like that. I think they're going to listen to a Democratic town not voting, or threatening them with not voting Democratic if they don't do what's right for our taxpayers, regardless of the party. And I think that'll get their attention. And I think they don't want that. They won't want that news. They don't want that kind of bad press. And maybe they'll do something for us for once. One of the other things, and then I'll get off, is Mrs. Kalapanovich talked about some of the events that are coming up. Well, this Saturday, there's also an event being hosted by the Indian Cultural Association of Monroe. It's free. It's at Dye Farm, and it's a great opportunity to meet our neighbors. We have a large and growing Indian population in Monroe, and it's a wonderful culture. Over the years, I spent a lot of time going to their events and making a lot of friends in the Indian community. And I could tell you that it's a very warm and wonderful community. Plus, they have good food. But I would just say that if people can get out to that, it's a great opportunity to learn about about some of our residents that live here. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Yes, sir. My name is Dave Bosco. I live at 16 Belmont Court over in Colts Run. We're talking about, possibly using the land that's adjacent to our property. My question is, the land that the land that's not, I'm sorry, the land that's over where Applegard School is, not on Oak Tree, I think it's about 15 to 20 acres where Applegard School is. Has that land been thought of as a possibility, or has it been looked into?
So are you talking about the land that Applegarth School is currently on?
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
All right, and
Yeah, it would, I mean, it wouldn't be large enough, it wouldn't fit our, it wouldn't meet our needs, but yes, we are considering that.
okay, thank you.
Before you begin, I know you mentioned a presentation. Let me tell you, you have 3 minutes to do a presentation. We had a little problem before, which I regret having a problem, because you remember the public and we want to hear what you have to say. But you have 3 minutes. Any kind of presentation that would take more than 3 minutes would have to be pre-approved by us.
We'll break it into chapters. I hate cliffhangers. I'm waiting for The Walking Dead to resume so I know who got killed on Walking Dead. But if you want to break it into 3-minute segments, I'm happy to do that. So we'll postpone some of this for the next meeting.
That's fine.
But I think this is all going to be
Just have
informative.
to state your name again, please.
Sure. John Elbason, 8 Belmont Court. I think this will be informative for the board because there were some questions raised about the land use in particular. There's a lot of misconception out there. We will also keep this available for after if anyone has questions. So this here is currently the wetlands, New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection's overview. This is an official mapping that is used by surveyors. It's a publicly available website. Anyone here can go to it. This clearly lists the area of southern Monroe and what is currently listed as wetlands. I'm going to show the area in question so that everyone at the board knows exactly the overlay of these 64 acres. The map here.
You need a microphone. You need to use the mic.
So looking at the map, we basically have 64 acres, which is right in this quadrant here. This is the box that we're talking about. These are the homes that have been built to the right and to the north. This 64 acres, if you notice those shaded celled areas, are the wetlands from the 2012 image survey that shows also the 3 tributaries running perpendicular to that land, which is also causing the wetlands to expand east to west. This was transferred in terms of deeds over the last 40 years for $1 because the value of this land is abysmal. So this is a classic gift horse scenario, folks. This was also identified by the township as proposed green acres in the 2006 Environmental Commission study and in the 2010 Environmental Commission study. It's also listed under the master plan as a priority acquisition land for green acres. So that's the first map we have.
Down to about 1 minute, so.
We'll make this a cliffhanger. I'm happy to answer questions for the board because we will be transparent about this. This is a classic gift horse scenario, and this is a classic transparency issue in public government, and we're being held to an arbitrary sunshine limit of 3 minutes, which is not for the betterment of this community nor for this board, Mr. President. So I respectfully object to your 3-minute statute.
You could object, it's not arbitrary. It's what we have in policy.
This map is depicting Prineville Road, where the current Monroe Middle School is, and where the current Monroe High School is. And my mic has cut out again. So between the U.S. Post Office on the corner of Prineville and between the middle school is actually a separate parcel of land. It is 14 acres. Mr. Gorski, are you aware of this land parcel in question?
I would have to study that map a little more closely. I've looked at quite a few with our architect and with Mr. Tague, and I'll admit I'm geographically challenged, so I'd have to look at it a little more closely and figure out where exactly you are.
We'll be happy to over the next several meetings. Block number 49, lot 26.01, 12 acres of land historically owned by the Board of Education of Monroe Township. It is perfect land that is situated to the south of the middle school. No one in this township wants to bifurcate the middle school to a north and south designation. We don't want to have kids be basically arbitrarily split into two in their most formative years. We would rather have a unified middle school that feeds organically into our high school.
Okay, I'm sorry, the time is
To be
up.
continued.
To be continued. Thank you.
Mr. Rybeck, I know, I'm asking you a question. Could you ask the gentleman to provide those documents to the board?
He said he was going to, I think you said you were going to leave them. Am I right?
I will stay afterwards, and then we will formally, through council, submit these to the township.
Okay.
And lastly, in speaking to the mayor's
Well,
office.
there is no lastly. I'm sorry. Your time is up. I can't have
Oh,
you
that's
go.
fine.
You did that the last time.
It's so unfortunate that we have
Well,
to wait a whole month.
what's
It is.
unfortunate is that you don't respect the 3-minute limit. So
Mr.
I have to say we're cutting you off.
Mr.
and
Board President,
no, I'm sorry, you're done. Next board meeting is Wednesday, October 19th at 7 p.m.
Somebody else?
Oh, I'm sorry. Someone else, yes. I didn't see you. I apologize.
Stephen Manfrey, 12 Belmont Court. I cede my time to John Elbison.
You cannot.
That's not how our policy works.
You're able to do that.
This isn't.
Yes, Mr. Board President, you are able to
Another
see time.
resident? Yes. Okay. If they want to speak.
Mr. Ryback, the woman over here would like
Did
to
you want to speak? Yes, I did. Okay. But they wanted to speak.
Thank you.
Patricia Lang, 74 McFarland Circle. How are you guys tonight? I wanted just to piggyback on two things. One that Jill said, and it kind of piggybacks on what you were saying earlier, Dr. Kozak, is that when Kathy was talking about how our district was rated, and you brought up how it's really hard to use data in those really specific ways and to look at it. But this is what our governor wants to do to our teachers. This is what he wants to do using PARCC, which is a substandard test, which hasn't been verified and hasn't been proven, where kids are struggling because it's written so poorly. And now we're going to use that to judge our teachers at 30% of their evaluation. That's a really scary prospect, especially in light of the fact that you've noticed the real trend to good educators who have been in education for a long time retiring because enough's enough. And with us going into a negotiations year, I think there has to be some consideration as what do we do as a Board of Ed, what do we do as a public to say, you can't do this to our teachers anymore. 30% based on a PARCC test, on one test, is absolutely insane. So that was number one. Number two, I just piggybacked on Mr. Russo, was that I do a lot of work for the American Heart, American Stroke Association as a survivor. And one of the ways that we get our word out to our government officials with different bills and things that we need is they actually have a website that you can go onto and it sends the letters directly. So I think that letter writing campaigns, when letters trickle in over a period of time, don't work because they get lost in a pile. But if there was a mechanism through a website and they're sending the letters directly where it's already pre-printed, it would be much more effective. So I just wanted to share that bit of information, but Mr. Russo had brought it up before me, so that was good. So thank you very much for my less than 3 minutes.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, the next schedule, not seeing anyone else from the public.
We are resuming our 3 minutes that
Well,
was given by Mr. Manfrey, a resident of
Let me
Monroe
just say what
Township,
I'm
New Jersey.
willing to do. You're obviously speaking for a group, am I correct?
We have an aggregate of minutes.
So we'll give you another 3 minutes. I'll extend it another 3 minutes for you, and then that's it. This is over.
And well, I'm not sure it's over.
Well,
I think this is a
for
conversation.
today, the meeting.
Okay,
Yes.
just let's not make it so terminal.
Okay, so it starts now.
Mr. Board President, would you prefer a special committee meeting to be established for this conversation at a later date to be determined in either September or October?
I think so.
Then we motion for that, and if that could be a resolution passed tonight, then I will satisfy my 3 minutes and return it back to the board.
Okay. In that case, well, I will ask the committee chairs if they are willing to accept that, and I always cede that to the committee chair. That's why they're the chairperson.
That would be the procedural vote, yes.
Okay, thank you. Next scheduled Board of Education meeting is Wednesday, October 19th at 7 p.m. This meeting is adjourned.
So
moved.
No, wait a minute.
I'm sorry.
Don't we have a?
Oh, I
We have
did.
closed session.
We didn't see you.
No, we're not having any closed session. I'm sorry. Got caught up with this. Ms. Skirby, did you want to speak? Absolutely. I didn't see you there.
He didn't see you.
A little hectic for a minute.
That's okay. Chrissy Skirby, 21 Preakness Drive. Sorry, it's a new residence. I just wanted to say, piggyback on something Mr. Ellington said about a uniform middle school. I think that we do need to really look into if we're going to have another middle school in town and what that truly means. I've been thinking about that a lot, being involved in the schools. You take on a lot of changes for the students. Right now, our middle school sports teams are thriving. There are several of them, and I think the board just needs to really take a look at what that would mean if you split a middle school in two. You're going to need more fields. Currently, the middle school field for baseball is not used by the middle schoolers. They are bused over to Oak Tree School to use those fields. So if you had another middle school, you would have to create another set of fields for all of the sports, because right now the sports fields are across the board, soccer, baseball, they are being utilized to the full extent. So I think that's something that the board really needs to look into. Clubs as well. You were going to need an entire new staff for the middle school. I think that maybe we want to pursue looking at what has been suggested by the ad hoc committee or the student growth committee, having a 5-6 building and a 7-8 building, and then high school 9 through 12. This way the students are moving together instead of being split until high school. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Yes.
Hi, Kim Schaubs, 2 Horseshoe Court. I live in the area. I've lived there for 9 years. I appreciate Mrs. Skirby's comments, but she's very new to the area. I have some very serious safety concerns. And if you guys decide to go forward with the schools, I hope you really sit with the township to go over the roads there. Wintertime there is a nightmare. North Wind is about 28 feet across. It's very narrow, that road. When it snows at any capacity, we're almost like trapped back there. The one time we had a blizzard, the wind was blowing and there was 3 feet of snow in the middle of that road, and I couldn't get out. And I'm just really concerned of buses coming off of Old Church Road, from Applegard to Old Church Road. I don't know how they're going to make that turn, so that has to be done. The other issue is if there's ever an emergency, there's no way out. There are only 2 ways out, is if you go down England or Old Church Road. You have to go through Southfield Estates is another way. If they were looking into opening Long Street, which is not existent because now I looked for the sign, it's not even there anymore. If that was open, at least that would take you out onto Perineville. Without that being there, I really think bringing 2,000 kids into that area with teachers and everything, I think it will be a huge problem if anything happens. Any kind of emergency, we can't get out. There's no way out. So I just wanted to let you know. And the other last concern is when they put in Colts Run for us, my property backs up to the Millstone River. The amount of water that I see on a bad rainy day, it really frightens me. And then to add now another area where you're building a school and it's going to come, the water is just going to keep coming. So I don't know how it's going to really impact me in the bigger picture, but I just want you to be aware. Like I've been there long enough time to really get an idea of what you're dealing with. So I would just appreciate if you guys are really seriously doing it, please go out in the middle of winter when there's a snowstorm and see what I'm talking about and really travel those roads and really look at how much I can't see how it would really make sense. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Did I see a hand come up? Oh, okay. There is no closed session. So we can skip 14 and 15. Let me just say the next scheduled board meeting is Wednesday, October 19th at 7 p.m. here in the high school. I'd like to make a motion to Kaufman to close. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Meeting's closed.